Okay, good evening everybody, and a warm welcome to those attending the Major Applications Planning Committee and those viewers that are watching on the Council's YouTube channel Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Steve Tuckwell and I am the Chairman of this evening's meeting. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible online underneath the live broadcast. For those present and in the room and intending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statements you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible when the microphone is switched on. Some of the domestic arrangements I'll just go into now. We are not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarm does go off, please follow officers to the fire exits and out of the building to the designated meeting points. For mobile and tablet devices, can I ask that those in the room please switch off any mobile devices before the meeting starts, or to put them on silent. Please note that councillors on the committee may be using their laptops or tablets during the meeting to view the agenda paperwork. Okay, that's the domestic announcements. I'm now going to introduce the attendees, both councillors and officers this evening. I'll start on my right hand side. We've got Councillor David Yarrow, we've got Councillor Shreya Ahmed Walana, we've got Councillor Alan Kaufman and Councillor Alan Chapman. On my left hand side I've got Councillor Janet Duncan, the Labour lead, and Councillor Jazz Dott. We've also got a number of officers that are supporting us this evening. We've got our Strategic and Major Planning Officer, Mandip Malhotra. We've got our Planning Officer this evening, Ed Lawton. We've got our Highways Officer, Alan Tilley. And we've got our Democratic Services Officer, Neil Fraser. And our Legal Advisor this evening, Nicole Cameron. Okay, I think that's all of the announcements before we actually get into the main body of the agenda. So I will start with agenda item number 1 this evening. Apologies for absence, Neil.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We have apologies received from Councillors Higgins and Cawthorne, with Councillor Kaufman and Ahmed Walana present.
Thank you, and may I just thank Councillor Ahmed Walana and Councillor Kaufman for standing in this evening. You're very welcome to be with us. Okay, agenda item 2 is declarations of matters of interest in the meeting this evening. Have we got any declarations of interest? No, not seeing anybody. And agenda item 3 this evening is matters notified in advance or in urgent, which there aren't any, which means we can go on to agenda item 4, which is to confirm public and private reports. All items this evening are in part 1, which is public. There are no part 2 or private items. The agenda will be taken in the order published, and I can confirm that there are no petition items this evening. Okay, that leaves us now. We can get into the main body of this evening's meeting, which is agenda item 5, which is St Andrews Park. So at this point I'm going to hand over to Ed, who's going to take us through. Over to you, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. This agenda item relates to a proposed modification to the Section 106 legal agreement attached to the St Andrews Park development. The modifications are to Schedule 8 and Schedule 9, which relate to the theatre site and the former cinema building respectively, with the original legal agreement proposing that both a parcel of land for a theatre and the former cinema building be transferred to the council. I'll take members through the presentation. Here's the site location plan. Here's the constraints plan. You'll see the, if I can highlight it, the primary shopping area of the High Street, and also Dowding Park. This is the site plan from the original Section 106 legal agreement. Here's a bird's eye view, which again you can see Dowding Park and the Civic Centre, which we're in now. These are 2 areas in question. This is the area of the land that was to be the theatre building, and this is the former cinema building. So here are the existing Schedule 8 and Schedule 9 in summary. The relevant points to note are that the former cinema building is Grade 2 listed, and a contribution of £750,000 would have been provided. This compares to the latest predicted cost of refurbishment works being in excess of £5 million. The council would have 5 years to complete the work and occupy the building. If not, the building would simply return to the current owners, with the council receiving nothing. With regard to the theatre site, the council would have a period of 2 years from the date of the completion of the transfer to commence development. The council must then build and occupy the theatre within 5 years. Again, if these deadlines are not met, the land returns to the current owners and the council would receive nothing. At the Cabinet meeting of the 14th of October, it was agreed that there is no longer a business case for a new theatre on St Andrews Park, or for the council to take ownership of the former cinema building, noting that the borough already has 3 existing theatres. As a result, it is proposed to delete Schedules 8 and 9 from the Section 106 legal agreements and replace them with the heads of terms shown on the screen. These show a financial contribution in lieu of the previous transfers and a requirement to maintain the former cinema building until it is brought back into use. I'll take you through. Here are the other three theatres that we have: the Compass Theatre, the Beck Theatre and the Winston Churchill Theatre. And this is the former cinema building here, and this is the land in question that would have transferred to the council. In summary, it's considered there is sufficient evidence base to demonstrate there is no need for a further theatre, and a contribution to be spent across the borough would be more beneficial to residents. The reason for this special committee is that the council is keen to deliver affordable housing through the unlocking of further development on St Andrews Park, including the 56 affordable housing units proposed in the next agenda item. The developer is keen to deliver their market housing, which has led to the regional contribution being agreed. There is one addendum item for the application which relates to a correction in the red line plan. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for taking us through that, Ed. Quite a technical application, one that normally doesn't come in front of this committee, but nonetheless we have to determine it. So I'm going to invite Nicole to come in and give us the benefit of some legal wisdom to help put some context around this. And I think, did you want to come in on anything after that, Mandic? Or? Okay, so over to you, Nicole.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it would just be helpful to remind members, excuse my voice, I'm losing it slowly. I think it would just be helpful to remind members of, you know, the decision that you're making and what you'll need to apply in terms of legal tests. So you've had a presentation, you've got the report pack, it's very clear what you are being asked to decide upon, but what you need to consider is the Section 106 legal tests. So you need to consider whether the planning obligation of 1.25 million and the condition survey and maintenance scheme is necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. The second limb of the legal test is that you need to consider whether it's directly related to the development. And the last limb is that you need to consider whether it's fairly and reasonably related in scale and kind to the development. So you just need to have those in mind when you're looking at this. I feel the presentation that you've been given is very clear. You have obligations in a former agreement that at the time were deemed necessary and met all of the legal tests. Time has passed and there's now been a change, and that's why you're seeing a difference in the planning obligations. And officers have taken some time to negotiate those and come to this decision for approval. So that's what I would ask you to keep in mind. And if you need any assistance with applying those tests, I'd be more than happy to help.
Okay, thank you for that, Nicole. Mandip, did you want to pick up on any points? Covered it all? Okay. Right, we're now open for questions for officers. I see Councillor Ahmed Walana indicating.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As this is very technical, and officers have explained all the technical terminology and schedules 8 and 9, including all the legal tests, including 106. I'm very happy after all this explanation. I'm very happy to move with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor. Councillor Chapman, I saw you indicate, followed by Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it is a technical, legalistic area, though, but I'm very comfortable that we do pass the legal test. We are where we are with this. If we'd known where we were going to be now 5 years ago, we wouldn't have put these things in. All the parties want these amendments, these changes. I'm happy to second that we go with officer's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So we are moved and seconded, but we have got an indication from Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, it's sad that in Uxbridge, one of the main centres where people from both north and south of the borough can come easily, that we're not able to make this provision, and I think it's really been because of COVID that everything is, you know, so up in the air. We don't know what will happen. I am concerned that we have got sufficient undertaking to preserve the listed building, because it is, what, you know, it is a listed building. It's got a particular kind of character from its time and its setting and the, you know, the service background that it was set in. And I just don't know whether 1.25 million is, I mean, it seems incredible to be talking in these terms as if we all throw millions around every day. But with listed buildings, we know that they just eat money. And is that, do we feel that that is sufficient to maintain it, preserve it, and then turn it into a community use, or whatever use there is going to be that will benefit the community at some point? Because we don't know when that's going to be, do we? There's no time limit on this, really. And that's, well, depending on, you know, a variants of this COVID, we could have a, you know, a serious one that comes in, that everything is locked down again. We simply don't know how many years or months. And it would just, I'm just trying to get some comfort of how we're going to preserve this building.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm getting indications from left and right here. Who would like to go first? Mandy, would you like to, or Ed, or I know Nicole will want to come in at some point. Maybe answer the councillors' points.
I can give you, there's an ever so slight confusion here. So if we look at page number 10, we are proposing to delete items 8 and 9, so schedules 8 and 9 from the former legal agreement. And what we are getting is two separate additional heads of term. So the first one will be a contribution of money towards borough-wide social infrastructure. And the second head of term, because this building, the former cinema, so that first head of term does not relate to the grade 2 listed cinema building.
Then we're not getting anything for that.
But what we are doing is returning it back to the applicants and asking that they ensure, by virtue of a maintenance scheme, that the building does not deteriorate in its form until the developer finds a suitable use to bring it back into occupation and operation. So if we were to secure money to safeguard that building, we have estimates of circa £5 million at the moment. So that's the reason that we aren't taking it ourselves, and we are offering it, well, asking for it to be returned, or choosing not to take it. Yeah. We are choosing not to take the building due to the cost of its refurbishment.
Thank you for that. Yes, that's explained it. Now I've confused the two things and put them together. Thank you for that. Do we know if there's agreement from the other party to take it back and to incur those costs? Because we also have a duty as a local planning authority to ensure that we don't have listed buildings in the hands of people who are not maintaining them, which is a further complication possibly.
At the moment we are choosing not to take the building, so therefore it's technically still in the ownership of somebody else. We have the option to take it should we wish to, and we are choosing not to take it. So the applicants are aware and have supported this application to retain the building, to bring it back into use for the wider St Andrews Park redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes it clear at least anyway.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think Mandip's nicely explained that. I think that clears things.
Okay, Councillor Dott.
Quick question. The 1.25 million contribution, is it one-off payment, isn't it? It's not like a term-based or ongoing something.
It's a one-off. It's a payment, a one-off payment, but it's broken down into. It's linked to the number of units being developed. So it's not paid all at once. It's paid in stages, but it is a one-off payment.
Thank you.
Okay, you okay with that? Yeah. Okay. Right, I've got Councillor Yarrow and Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. There is pressure at the moment. That there is what is needed on that site is a community centre for the vast amounts of people that are now living there. And since we lost the Battle of Britain Club, certainly pressure is mounting on Mainstay and the people who are running it, and also on the developers. So I would think that yes, this building is going to be given back to them. They have to keep it in reasonable working order for a period, and I would hope that the pressure can be applied for them to look at this, and it would be an ideal opportunity to have some kind of community centre there, plus something else. It's a very large building, and that we would, the council would help to push them in that direction in order for the community. So I'm supportive of this application, and it's something that we have to do, but we should be working behind the scenes to make sure that some kind of community centre is available at some time in the future.
I have no doubt, Councillor, that Hillingdon's approach to its heritage and listed buildings will ensure officers are pushing that, and I welcome that in front of this committee at some point in the future. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Chairman. After listening to sort of everyone's comments, I think, Mandy, you've explained it sort of to the best, or the best explanation, let me put it that way. And therefore, I've read everything on this application, and I'm quite happy to go along with officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Right, I'm not seeing anybody indicate. We are moved by Councillor Ahmed Walana. We're seconded by Councillor Chapman. Can I have a show of hands, please, for support of officer's recommendation? I make that unanimous. Okay, thank you, everybody. I can confirm that agenda item 5 this evening is approved. Thank you. Right, that means we can move swiftly on to agenda item 6, which is just across the road from what we've just talked about. But I'm going to hand over to Ed to talk us through this one. So thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. The next item on the agenda relates to the final reserve matters application on the St Andrews Park development. The proposed scheme would provide 294 residential units, providing a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom dwellings, including 27 3-bedroom townhouses to the rear of the Mons block. 56 affordable housing units proposed across the development, which equates to 19%. There will be 125 car parking spaces, the majority of which would be located away from the public realm under podiums within the proposed blocks. In addition, 324 cycle spaces are proposed. If I can take members through the plans, here's the location plan, here's the constraints plan, here is the site plan with the existing development of St Andrews Park around it. So you'll know that Dowding Park is here with the DICE scheme and the residential triangle. And then if we go through the proposed site layout, you can see this is the Mons block I mentioned, and these would be the townhouses. And then the blocks would increase in height away from the lower density development to the south. So we can go through the floor plans. The basement floor plan shows the car parking proposed within the blocks, and then at ground floor level you can see that the access points to the underground parking would be here and here under the blocks, and the parking for the townhouses would be at ground level to the front. There would also be the maintained green route from the town centre through the site down to Dowding Park. That's the green route proposed through here. And as I move up, you can see the height is away from the low density housing to the south. I can flick through some sections for you, some elevations. Now I have to say, I don't think these elevations show the real detail of the proposals. These are the townhouses. So I've added some additional slides showing some material details. So if you look at these plans, it gives the impression of large grey facades, but there is additional detail that's proposed in there, and there's quite a selection of details proposed. There's also the condition that's attached to the outline consent requiring further details of materials to be approved by officers, including the Council's Conservation and Design Officer. Now, one of the particular things I wanted to highlight was that they're proposing these brick details, which replicates the chevron idea from the RAF past of the site, and then there's some 3D visuals of what is proposed. This is the podium proposed within the larger of the two blocks. So this is the site as it is at the moment. Bird's eye view. Here's the residential triangle, the Mons block, and the former cinema building. I can take you some photos. Members will know the site very well by now. So, as As stated previously, the proposed scheme would provide 294 residential units, including 56 affordable housing units. The application is for reserved matters with the location, proposed uses and building mass parameters already approved under the outline consent. It is worth noting that the outline consent, as amended, include a total of 89 conditions relating to the usual matters such as highways, landscaping, drainage, air quality and contamination, amongst other matters, and these conditions carry over to the current reserved matters application as set out in the committee report. Where matters are not covered by the original consent, they are proposed to be attached to any approval of the current reserved matters, for example, an arboricultural survey and hours of use. In addition, a fire strategy condition is recommended following the introduction of new policies since the original permission. The overall development is considered to be of appropriate scale and design and will provide a significant number of affordable housing units. The scheme would introduce 30 new street trees and maintain the green link between the town centre and Dowding Park. There is one addendum item for the application which relates to the inclusion of an additional tree protection plan in the approved plans list. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for taking us through that, Ed. I think it's worth reminding members that this is a reserve matters previously consented scheme. So I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Mandip, to help members.
Just to reiterate that this application has come before you with very few conditions, but that's because, as Ed explained, they're all attached to the original permission, so that's 89 conditions. So we are not without conditions, just in case you were wondering.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're at a point now where we can ask officers any questions. Anybody like to indicate to start the debate off? Councillor Duncan.
Yeah. Could I just ask, I don't know whether I've missed it or not, but the original outline consent included a GP surgery, and as we are having more housing, I just wondered what the situation was with that. That was one point. The other thing is, have we got the overheating condition relating to the scheme of heating that there will be in the building, and that's incorporated into the design at an early stage so that we don't have things like hot water pipes running down corridors when it's 35 degrees in the summer. And the other thing was, I think if the building is over 18 metres high, there are particular fire matters that have to be addressed. And I heard recently there was a news item where the Chief Fire Officer for London was expressing concern that a lot of new buildings were not incorporating these measures. So I would just like some reassurance about that, particularly for tall buildings. I mean, I suppose we're all very aware of these matters now, following, the tragedies that have happened, but I'd just like to be sure about it, please. So just those three things.
Okay, yeah, 3 points there. The GP surgery issue, the overheating condition, which I think becomes a regular feature on these big schemes now, and does the fire condition give us comfort for buildings over 18 metres in height?
Okay, so the 3 points raised. The first one in relation to the GP surgery. At the time of the original Section 106, there was an agreement that it would either be a GP surgery or a financial contribution. Now, at the time, there wasn't an agreement as to what the GP surgery would look like, and so the financial contribution was accepted in its place. In relation, in relation to the overheating query, there is a condition number 8 proposed that requires an overheating assessment to be provided. And then finally, the fire safety condition, any discharge of that condition would be in discussion with London Fire Brigade to make sure they're happy with the details provided.
That's condition number 4.
Okay. Any come back on that, Councillor Duncan?
Well, it's very disappointing to hear that money is always being offered, but somehow it never finds its way into built development. And I mean, particularly with the pandemic, I think the stretch on the National Health Service. Yes, of course we like to see the money, but it needs to be invested into some real provision, and particularly at this time when the National Health Service needs more, when the existing structures and staff are so pressured. So I would hope that that's something that perhaps another arm of the council, under one of its other committees, is able to move on. Yes, the standard condition or non-standard condition about the overheating strategy, does that include the networks? Because it's about the heating schemes that are installed, isn't it, at an early stage? Does that encompass that?
Something you can pick up, guys.
Full details of the development's overheating strategy.
So the overheating strategy is made up of a number of different elements. If I'm honest, some of it relates to noise. So is there too much noise, and do the windows always have to be closed shut, which requires then to have mechanical ventilation? So the overheating strategy will take into all aspects, such as the type of system installed within the building to ensure that it doesn't create excessive heat internally, as well as how we then ventilate when there is the potential to overheat.
Right.
So it should take into account all aspects.
So the overheating strategy, is that something that developers now have to submit on these larger schemes? And that's a requirement.
It is now something that we're being made more aware of on major applications. It is partly covered by building regulations, but we are trying to make sure that we can satisfy the requirements at planning application stage as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
And the fire strategy piece, you okay with that?
As long as the fire brigade signing it off as acceptable, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think just on the overheating piece, as I said, we're seeing more and more of it, and I think it's like telephone masts. Remember, this committee has ensured that certain conditions are designed into these larger applications. So it's a good point to raise. Okay, Councillor Yarrow.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a little bit puzzling about the GP surgery, because this went on for a long time in the early days, and it would appear that the National Health Service must take some complaints from us about that, because we couldn't get an agreement. We could not get how it's going to be staffed, and we couldn't get the size that they wanted, what they actually wanted, and at the end of the day, I didn't realise that we'd accepted a financial settlement, because that would have probably have been used in the St George's when they redeveloped that site. So we've lost that amount of money. Can I just say, there's a building there on the screen now, which is the old cinema. There is space for community centres and perhaps a modified health centre, but we need to open some discussions with the owners or who has the cash here, and say there could be a good use for that, what was the old cinema. But we tried to get the GP surgery and failed because we could not get an agreement out of the NHS.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Well, I think it's always, when committees have to pick up previously consented schemes, we have to sort of work with what we've got. But yeah, any other councillors indicating? Councillor Dott.
Thank you, Chair. My question is regarding the visitor parking, so I think Alan is the best person to answer the question. We have 294 approximately 300 residential unit, and only 3 visitors parking is proposed, which is only 1%. So don't we think is very minimum, or we can increase the amount of visitors parking over there?
I'll let Alan come in on that, but I think, again, it's a previously consented scheme, so we'll just see what Alan's got to update us on that one.
Thank you, Chairman. The St Andrews development is right on the edge of Uxbridge Town Centre, where there's ample public car parking available for residents, visitors to use. So we feel that there's plenty of car parking very close to the site, as well as other public transport opportunities. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Alan. Councillor Dott, did you want to come back on anything? No? Okay. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, well, it's disappointing about the GP surgery, but I take up the points that Councillor Yarrow made, and also previously about the building, that there is a need for this as a community, centre. People are asking for that. Hope that will happen. Possibly, yes, there could be some health provision within it. But anyway, I'm happy to move officer's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Chapman.
Happy to second it, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other members wishing to indicate they want to speak? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the debate, everybody. I can see that we're moved by Councillor Duncan and seconded by Councillor Chapman. I think it's at that point now we can take the vote. All those in favour of officer's recommendation? That's unanimous, Neil? Okay, I can confirm tonight then agenda item 6 is approved. Okay, thank you. Right, that brings us to the end of this evening's proceedings. Thank you very much to officers for supporting us. Thank you very much to the voting members this evening. Thank you to the substitutes, who some of them are coming at very short notice. So thank you for that. And thank you for anybody that was watching us on YouTube. But we are going to cut the live feed now and bid you all a good evening. Thank you.